There you are.
There I am.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, we are breaking new ground on Kidney Stories 2 as we are discussing face transplants with Robert Chelsea. In August of 2013, Robert's vehicle was struck by a drunk driver. Robert was driving home from church on the 605 in Los Angeles, California, when his car overheated. He pulled to the side of the freeway to await roadside assistance when the unthinkable happened. A drunk driver with 3 previous DUI convictions slammed into his disabled car with such great force and impact that the car exploded. It was only with the grace of God and the heroism of a bystander that Robert survived that accident. The collision and the ensuing explosion left Robert severely disfigured with third-degree burns over 60% of his body and face. Robert was in a coma for 6 months and hospitalized for 18 months with severe burns covering the majority of his face and body. Facial tissue, including his lips, were burnt off in the accident. Since the accident, by your Uncle Jim's incredibly bad math, he has endured more than 30 surgeries to repair the extensive damage to his body. After years of tests and physical and psychological evaluations and a false alarm, a longer wait than usual for a donor, Robert underwent a 16-hour full-face transplant at Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is affiliated with the University of Harvard, on July 27, 2019, with Dr. Bohdan Pomamic, Pomahc. I hope I halfway pronounced that right. A
Tomahawk.
plastic surgeon. Oh, Pomahawk. Thank you.
Golden Tomahawk.
A plastic surgeon and the head surgeon for this transplant. The 16-hour surgery, including a team of over 45 surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, residents, research fellows, all led by Dr. Pohamic, was only the 9th facial transplant procedure at Brigham, the 15th worldwide, and Robert tells us that he was the 47th, or nationwide, 15th nationwide. He was the 47th person worldwide to receive a face transplant. At 68, Robert became the first Black patient and the oldest in the world to receive a full facial transplant. Facial transplants are different than solid organ transplants. And, as I said, Robert was only the 47th person ever to receive that. Costs for such procedures are extremely high, even when insured. All funds raised are to cover expensive medical copays, caregivers, travel to and from Boston, and day-to-day living expenses. Medical costs are still high today and are increasing. Nonetheless, as you will see, Robert has tremendous faith and a terrific attitude as an influencer in the minority transplant donation community, including not only facial, but also with kidneys, livers, lungs, and other solid organ transplants. After his surgery, Robert said, quote, "I am forever indebted to Brigham and Women's Hospital, the most amazing surgical and nurse team ever assembled. The place oozes compassion. This experience has been an incredible journey for me, filled at times with many challenges. Today, however, I am thrilled to say that I am on the road to recovery, thanks to an incredible team of doctors and staff at Brigham and Women's Hospital, the love and support of my family and friends, and my unwavering faith. Please give a warm welcome to the first Black man and the oldest transplant recipient ever of a facial transplant. The great Robert Chelsea is here with us tonight. Robert, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing fine. I sincerely appreciate you allowing me to be on your show today. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have you. It's such an interesting story, and I know all the folks out there want to help. So I want to make sure we get it out. Did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
Very much. Many people have written what they have interpreted. I never really interviewed with CNN. I never interviewed with USA Today or some of the others. But they wrote about me in their own words. So I've gotten used to certain wording that may not be exactly right, but it's okay. Everyone interprets things a little different, and I don't take that as fault. I think the main thing is that we want to emphasize uh, the new and innovative technology, the opportunity, job, and science that can be expanded as a result of receiving the face transplant. And I hope it's a greater incentive for others, no matter how you word it. Your show will word it one way in your expressions, and then Time Magazine, they had their own interpretation. So it's okay. I don't know where I was coming from when the accident occurred, for an example. But somebody put in there I was coming from church. Well, it was a Monday evening around 10 o'clock. I'm pretty sure I wasn't coming from church. But who cares? Uh,
Okay.
when the accident occurred, uh, I saw the car. The driver was crossing 2 or 3 lanes. I saw it coming, but I knew there wasn't anything I could do. And when the car ran into me, my car went up in the air and it came down, and it was just a few seconds later, then it blew up. So seemed like uh, seemed like the Lord just said, "Go to your left." And I was thinking to myself, and these are in nanoseconds. If I go to my left, it's so much more fire on that side, which is the driver's side where I was, versus going to the right where there wasn't quite as much, but I had to go over my car panel. So I went on. I just realized, be obedient. If he makes it that clear to you, do it. And that's what I did. I just kind of went to the left, and I felt like I was going through a long tunnel of fire. And as I was going through this tunnel, uh, a now friend of mine, we'll call him a good Samaritan, his name was Richard Robles, was there. As I was trying to get out, he was there. And he even had a fire extinguisher. And he told me that he used it, but I don't remember all of that. I do remember him saying he tried to escort me to a safe area because the freeway traffic was still really running fast. And he said he tried to escort me to a safe area, but my arms were melting. So he had to get a belt buckle and put it around my waist and escort me around. While we were doing that, I wanted to make sure that the driver was okay because you don't know who was in the car, how many people, and we went over there, and of course the drunk guy, he was by himself, and he was okay, and so we found a safe area to lean on while the ambulance came.
Okay. Robert, tell us a little bit about where you grew up your education experience and your employment experiences?
Well, I'm from Los Angeles, California, uh, and where black people are, they usually like to call that, and in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they would say, you must be from Watts. And then, later on, since they realized that we lived uh, places other than just Watts, that we kind of spread out from there. So now they call wherever a black person lived South Central. So that's where I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, which is uh, uh, about 3/4 of a mile from USC, USC, University of Southern California. So that's where I grew up. I went to the local high school, Manual Arts High School, and my business, I started in business when I was about 17 and a half. I actually joined IBM. Uh, I didn't even graduate from high school at the time. I just lied my way into, I applied and I filled the application out and I put my age way up. I guess I don't know what I said, 20, 21, 22. I wrote down some college that I was going to, but I hadn't even left high school yet. So I lied my way. Unfortunately, they accepted me. And so that's where I started with IBM. And I eventually worked for other companies, Canon, USA. And then I worked for Xerox uh, in the mid 70s, mid to late 70s. And I went into my own business for a minute. It failed. I joined another company, a Kodak-owned company called Diconics, and so I moved on from there, and eventually I joined another company as an independent contractor, a company called JT Cook, and they have been extra special toward me, my health, my family, and so on. But in terms of business, that's where it came from. I've taken, in terms of education, it's been, uh, I try not to be, place a lot of emphasis on all that. I don't see really the importance. Once you get to be 60, 70 years old, your legacy, even your foundation, is not established by any kind of credentials. Some people have credentials that are insult to the school because of how they behave and carry themselves. So I hope that as I endeavor on, that character and godliness will be the visibility or the visual uh, 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 manifestation of who I am or how I have been educated. My life has changed as a result in the 80s when I turned my heart to Christ. So no longer has anything mattered except trying to learn how to live a godly life.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about what your life was like before the collision of August of 2013. Are you a married guy? Do you have children?
I have a daughter. She's in her 30s now. Um, when the accident occurred, she was in her 20s, and she's my one and only child. But she's an absolute darling, and her name is Ebony. She's actually obviously been through a great deal as a result of her father. She lived with me most of our life. There was some challenges, uh, some I don't know if you ever heard of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, but my wife was experiencing that, and as a result of that, it was just easier that I uh, keep my daughter so that her mother could have some space to deal with her conditions. So uh, my daughter pretty much lived with me up until the time that the accident occurred.
Okay. Um, you were up to the point where, with the accident, that you were taken to the side of the road after checking on the other driver. Can you tell us what happened next?
I, well, we checked on the other driver, but the ambulance came after that, and they put me. I was conscious. I told them who I was and who to call, and actually, after telling them all that, I just figured they would go and check me out, and somebody would come to pick me up. One of my loved ones would come and pick me up in the hospital. I had no clue that I was severely burned like I was. I was actually burned from top to bottom. I didn't realize that. I did feel some hot spots, um, but I laid on the gurney thinking, okay, that was a traumatic experience for me, so I'm tired. I'm uh, all shook up, so to speak. I laid on the gurney and went to sleep. And next thing I knew, I'd waken up 6 months later. I didn't know that I had awakened. The only way, when I came out the coma, so many nurses and doctors and everyone is elated. They're rejoicing. They're calling me by my nickname, which is Bobby. And how would they know that? I didn't think, they didn't know me. I didn't know them. And yet they're saying, oh, you're a miracle. Oh, Bobby, we've been caring for you all this time. And, oh, we're so glad you're here. Family was tough. So it took about a good 2, 3 weeks before I finally succumbed to. I must have been in a coma. They finally convinced me that I was in a coma.
Okay. My notes tell me that you were very severely disfigured with third-degree burns over 60% of your body and face.
Yes,
That facial tissue, including your lips, were burnt off in the accident. I mean, you had a pretty severe burn injury, did you not?
yeah, but I didn't realize it. Um, and 60%, depending on who you talk to, it was 45%, 70%. Just who knows the percentage. But yeah, I look like a Halloween mask. Yeah, it's I don't know if you have any pictures, but yeah, but that was okay. I didn't realize that even until maybe 8 months later, because I hadn't seen myself. I was in the bed all that time, and they had me strapped down when I woke up from the coma, and so they started explaining to me that my organs weren't coming up like they should, and that's why they're keeping me in the hospital. So that's what I accepted, was that they were checking on my organs, making sure they're okay. But I still didn't know I was really that severely burned. I could see my legs and I could see my arms, but I couldn't see too much of my chest. I didn't see my head at all. So uh, once once they decided to try to get me out of bed, like I said, around 8 months later, they put me in a wheelchair, and as they were wheeling me out to the hallway, I saw a aluminum paper towel holder, like right at the sink. And when I saw that, it was a reflection of me, and that's why I asked the nurse to back me up. She should let me see myself, and I said to myself, now that's what everybody's making a fuss about. I couldn't. So when I saw myself, you know, it, I had no idea that I looked that way, but it was okay with me. It was still me. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And the experience that I went through, Jim, it was no less than glorious. I this my experience, I didn't have any pain. You know. Not
Okay.
only that, and we're not talking transplant. When I had the transplant, I had no pain. Now,
And
I could not. People can give me a lot of credit. Oh, you're a man of faith. Oh, you are courageous. Oh, you are so special. Oh, you muscular strong. No, none of that. I'm just like anybody else. But God carried me through.
okay. Um, my notes tell me that you were in and out of a coma for 6 months, hospitalized for 18 months with severe burns covering a majority of your face and body, that you had 18 surgeries to keep you alive, including skin graft for burns and abdominal operations for gastrointestinal complications. You had problems with blood pressure that caused blood flow to move from your extremities, leading to tissue death in your lips, nose, and fingers. Is that all correct?
Well, it wasn't 18, it was more like 30 surgeries during my period in the coma.
Okay.
The first 4 months, the University of Irvine, University of California, Irvine Burn Center handled all of what you described. They had to take out 2/3 of my intestines, which is still out, and that causes what's called a short gut syndrome, meaning uh, my small intestines, 2/3 of that, and so whatever goes in comes out quite rapidly. And
Mhm.
fortunately, I'm cognizant of it happening. So, I'm not incontinent, which is, obviously I'm grateful for. But the 18 was, I think, it kind of switched. It was over 30 before I came out the coma, and then after the coma, uh, well, I was in several hospitals. I was in UCI. They sent me to a long-term hospital called Kindred. Kindred decided they would give me a specialized rehabilitation. They sent me to a place called Rancho Los Amigos, which is one of the top rehab centers in the country. And I could only stay there 3 weeks before they realized I was too weak and not prepared to actually have rehab, that kind of intense rehab until I got stronger. And they also wanted me, my head needed to be regrafted. It was grafted. It had all kind of stuff in it and all over, but it needed to be regrafted. And by then, my fingers and toes, some of them had gangrene, so they had to be amputated. So I had to go back to UCI, and they regrafted my head and amputated my fingers and toes that are here. And then they sent me, of course, I stayed there another 2 months or so. Then they sent me back to Kendrick, and then Kendrick sent me to Paramount Metals. And so that was the cycle of about, in total, about 18 months. By the way, when I was at Kendrick, the burn center the first time, my hands, you see my hands?
Yeah.
These are graft, these are cadaver skin. This has nothing to do with the transplant that took place in 2019. This took place 2013 because my hands were all burned off, and they had to put cadaver skin to cover my hands. So these fingernails are not the way they grow is not the way mine was growing. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see the light portion here,
Yeah.
this portion, and this is all that's left of my own skin. All of this that you see, if I pull down my shirt, it would be all grass.
Okay. Do I have a photo? You mentioned you didn't have a photo. I have a photo. It's a picture of you. There are three pictures of your face. One before the accident, one shortly after the accident, and one shortly after the transplant
Uh-huh.
surgery. Is it okay with you if I show the folks that photo?
Yes, of course. You know, I, there's no reason for me to hide from anything. It'd be different, like a kidney or a heart, liver. It's internal. If you don't tell anybody, they won't know that you've had a transplant. But with this face, you see my head. This
Yeah.
this there's no way of getting around that. My head, this hair, that came from the donor. All this, my forehead, and all of it has a different personality. It reacts differently. My cheeks act differently. My chin, my nose, my lips, uh, they all have their own characteristics that I have from the donor. So they react differently. The nerve endings, some of them are tight, some of them are loose. Some work, some don't work. The blood vessels, the same thing.
Okay. You have some friends that want to say hi. Educating minorities about transplants is saying that it's an amazing story. It's good to see you. My friend Jonathan Traylor, who also does broadcasts and podcasts, is saying hello. Brenda Blair, who I believe is another broadcaster, podcaster type, is saying hello. And our good friend and sponsor, Kent Bressler's talking about what a great story this is. Let me show folks that photograph for a minute and get your comments.
Yeah.
Okay, photographs up. Can you see it there, Robert?
Yes. I the photograph to the left, of course, that was before my accident, and I'm not sure what to say about it. I think I had gone ballroom dancing. That was something that not the kind that you see on television, but this is more of it's called urban ballroom, more based on cha-cha. And
Okay.
then of course the accident, uh, that I think that particular picture was taken. I had uh, I wanted to thank everyone that supported me, that prayed for me, and I just wanted to, just let them all know at the same time that I was grateful to them. So uh, they took that picture. That was at uh, Sandy Carhas, who is the president of the uh, Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. She, that's based out of Long Beach, she hosted that affair. And then, of course, this after the transplant, I, you know, oh, shaving is one thing. I noticed that I had beard, all that. Well, of course, I had my beard before then, and my beard even during the burn, it started growing. Um, but this is the beard that I have now, the mustache and all that. That's that's from the donor.
Okay. Okay.
Now you can see my lips were burned off in the middle picture. Not only that, but part of my tongue was too.
Wow. Okay, you're back. I wanted
You can
to
leave that
add.
on if you want to, Jen. It's up to
No.
you.
Oh, no. I need to talk to you. I need to see you.
Okay.
But I just wanted people to get an idea of what we're talking about. Um, uh, there was some issue that I read about you're having problems eating and drinking. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I maybe I should. Wait a minute. I was drinking with a syringe since the accident. I could not eat or drink without with. Well, I had a G tube for all that time for the food, But to drink, I had to have it's a real big. I have it, but I don't want to have to get up and take your time away. But um, I drink out of a syringe, and when I eat, I would eat with my head tilted back like this because remember I had no lips. So if you try to eat here, the food just comes right out. The
Wow.
saliva continued to come out. So even when I walked around, uh, I always have a handy towel with me because the saliva would continue to. They always say, "Well, why do you wear a mask?" Well, when you have saliva wetting your lips, the mask is no good. It gets wet within 5 minutes. You have to get rid of it because it's wet. So, uh, so I just continued to, as I walked and learned how to walk again, my exercise and all that. I just did it the best I could. And of course, you walk down the street and cars pass by, and the gas fumes and flies and everything else go right in your mouth. you know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
but it's good that I
Wow.
had a chance to see and feel the experiences of others that have many other, you might say, complications. And how can I appreciate or advocate for anyone? And I have very little understanding of what they're going through. And so I do now have, I know what burn survivors are going through, what kind of regimen and diet and challenges that, that they're subject to. I know how it feels to have to be an amputee. And now I know how it feels not just to be a transplant recipient, because we do take singular medication, but because I'm face transplant, of course, it kind of is it's a different regimen altogether, really.
Do you have issues handling extreme temperatures, high temperatures, low temperatures? Is that an issue?
As a burn survivor, uh, you do have. I mean, the hot are hotter and the cold is colder, because my dermis, my outer layer, is not there. Uh, but then to find veins, you can't find veins. Everything is all grafted, so they can't. And the grafts are very difficult for any needles to go through. You do take a lot of blood tests. My blood tests are still every week, and this is 10 years. Uh, it'll be in August. It'll be 10 years that I've been, burn survivor. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, it becomes a challenge.
Okay. Did you have periodic debridements where they actually removed bad skin from time to time?
No, no, no more. The majority of that was done while I was in a coma. However, uh, I had frequent wound care because if I showed you my legs now, I wore these short pants just so you could see. This is how my legs look now. Can you see?
Yeah.
Wait, okay. So that's how my legs look now. All so they could easily be uh, they could easily be uh, injured, or a scratch could cause it to blister or bleed, and it would take a lot longer for that to heal. So you can't put band-aids on it. You can't put alcohol. Boy, that would really burn if you try to use any antiseptic like that, because the skin is still exposed.
Okay. I understand that you finally got to go home in December of 2013. Can you tell us what that was
So,
like?
December 14th, I was in the hospital August 2013, August the 5th, and I was discharged in December 2014. A
14.
year,
Okay,
a year and a half. So yeah.
I stand corrected. What was that like when you got to go home?
Well, well when I had to when I got discharged, I went to my sister's. She lives in an area called Victorville, and Victorville is have you ever heard of Mojave Desert? It is in the desert, away from everything, everybody. And I was there for 3.5 years. Um, so when I got transported from the hospital, I I still couldn't walk, and so I had to have uh, uh, personal care for several months before I could walk or so I could bathe on my own or anything like that. So the transition, I'm used to it. 18 months in the hospital, so I knew just about everything. All I wanted to do when I got out was relax, uh,
Okay.
breathe a little bit, see just my daughter and wanted to, because the experience, it's such a life changing experience, and the joy that I experienced. I know this may not be for everyone, but God had He put me in a place where I don't want to ever return. Many ask me, well, don't and people that pray, oh, we're praying for your full recovery. Oh, we're praying that you get restored. Don't pray for that. You not only are you wasting your time, but that's not my preference. My
Okay.
preference is to let me enjoy this ride. I've seen more in these 10 years that I appreciate far more than whatever I experienced in the other 60 years. Uh, I think Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. Do you think that he complained when he got out, or he rejoiced? It's an experience, an element or a dimension that very few can attest to, and those that do can't help but rejoice. So that's what's happened to me. It wasn't like I wanted to get back and do and go. No, let me enjoy. When you go into a valley, Jim, it may seem terrible to others, but I assure you, God can place lilies in that valley. And
Okay.
if you are a bed of lilies, my God, how can you complain? How can you even desire to leave that? So I want to enjoy the ride, whatever corner that's in that valley. Let me see that before I get up and walk around and run around and retreat back to whatever it was it's insignificant compared to the joy and peace that I had. So it wasn't a great desire for me to get back and you know be as active. You know.
Okay. Can you tell us about the reaction of other people, friends, family, business contacts? What was that like when you came home?
Uh, the friends, well, friends, of course, they pretty much stayed friends. Many of them could not see me or, you know, find themselves to come and visit because either they heard how horrible I looked. I mean, uh, I know I look pretty bad. And most of them in the first 6 months, whoever came to the hospital, which I understand there was quite a few, but they saw the worst. They they suffered much more than I did. They were uneasy and uncomfortable and not sure of what I would be like. And of course, they had great empathy for me. They can you imagine what your daughter is going through? Her worry. You know, I was coded blue several times, and uh, and Irvine Hospital in Irvine, they are in Orange County. My family lived mostly in Los Angeles County, so they had to travel. There was one time I remember my family members said that they got the call to come and that this would be the last time that they would see me alive, and they couldn't get there they had no transportation to get there, and UCI was going to go and pick them up from Orange from the it's about a 88 to 90 mile drive one way. So uh, they went through a great deal of worry. They had to sign off on every surgery. So, uh, but now on the other hand, I know they suffered a lot, and and then others didn't recognize me. I was at a place once, and a whole lot of friends were there. I was at a funeral, and the guy I know very well, he, I saw him. I called him over, and he came, sat down with me, and I started talking with him, and he talked back with me. So after he left, he uh, he called me later on that night and said, Chelsea, I need to apologize to you because I had no idea who you were. I came and sat down with you and talked to you, but I could not figure out who you were. I've had other experiences. I went to a restaurant and and my sister was with me, and we you place your name on the list and you sit down in the foyer or the lobby area, and as we were waiting, there's a lot of people around, and a little boy came in and his father. Little boy walked through the door first, and he looked around, looked at me, and said, he's shocked. And he ran back to his father and grabbed his father's leg and said, Daddy, Daddy, he looks like a zombie. So that's what you see and what you hear. It's okay. I did look like one. And so that was okay. Um, I've experienced, there's a note here asking me about sun damage and sunburn. Yes, uh, it was after the transplant. Well, while being burned, I, I had to keep myself shaded. After the transplant, however, uh, the hospital insisted on me wearing sunscreen wherever I go anytime, not just my face, but all over. So, and that's kind of they still want me to do that. That's an
Mhm.
area that I'd like to talk to you about some, maybe throughout the course of time because there is a tremendous difference in a black individual receiving a face transplant versus anyone else. Remember, I try to make sure I emphasize that I was a 47th. Well, that may not sound like anything to be celebrated, and it isn't, as far as I'm concerned. But it also appears to me that it's just about an insult because if you're the 47th and you're black, that means all the experience, all their education, all their understanding, all their interpretation, how they see things is based on one culture. And yet, our the greatest culture, the largest number of people are of color, whatever color it is, they're of color. So it's impractical to look upon because one shoe doesn't fit all. Neither should one culture be a benchmark for all. So when they say to me, well, you can't shave, you got to use a straight razor. Well, wait a minute. I, many of us, many blacks, as an example, men, we use magic shave sometimes. It's different, just depends, But because they ain't growing hairs that come from. So these things they don't know. How can they recommend to me what I should do when they don't know?
Right.
In
Right.
the journal, they show uh, signs that the nurses should look for. When a person's recovering, uh, signs of rejection. Well, in the journals it says look for blue lips. Well, how do you get or pink face, or pale face, red face? So that doesn't apply to me. So who's gonna check these things or detect any signs that may come from this 47th patient? That's why it's so important that our system, science, medical, etc., be more in line with and more conscious and willing, willing to appreciate every culture and every color because uh, it opens up far more intelligence and experience to other individuals that could have, whether it's a face transplant or any other. So I have to encourage the medical industry and the politicians, as well as every other industry, the educational system. We got to come up to date with realizing how one eye can save 8 eyes. One eye. That can put somebody back in business. They can be a productive citizen. And so there's the military has at least 300 candidates, qualified candidates, to have a face transplant right now. But they had to wait for Brigham Women's to do the first 10 successful transplants. And I happen to be the ninth on that. So my concern is that we, uh, and you see, it goes far beyond all the rules, regulations, ordinances, or whatever you might call them, are based on one culture. And that has to do with uh, any kind of transplant. It has to do with a lot of other things too. You know. So
Okay.
this is a very important issue.
Let me ask a question about your faith. You've mentioned that a few times throughout the broadcast. Can you explain to us how your faith has sustained you, for lack of a better term, throughout your ordeal?
Well, my faith has increased. Uh, people will say, "Oh, you got great faith. Oh, God wants us to love Him. You can't love until you. How you gonna? You can't hardly get along. It takes time to develop love for even for God. We, my experience has been the more I have engaged in learning the precious ways of God, the more I have developed a trust because He reassures you. He fortifies your life with such a joy that He makes it real clear that He has been providing these things. Just like you can rely on your mother, it takes time to rely on the neighbor, but over time, my faith grows because He has been there, because He's opened those doors. If you knew the kind of income I had, and then my expenses, especially these medical, you, you, it's no coincidence. Being the first black, the branch that I went to was the third in the whole country. The the rehab in Rancho Los Angeles is ranked at least if not third to five, top five in the country. The face transplant surgeon. He is the number one face transplant surgeon in the whole world. How did this happen? Certainly wasn't orchestrated by me. So my faith has increased exponentially. And so I appreciate when you read so much, it's one thing, but then you have personal experiences. You know, it's a common verb, a common scripture. Yea, though I walk the valley of the shadows of death, I fear no evil. Well, this didn't happen overnight. It's because he developed a trust where he no longer had to fear. He knew he could, because God was with him. He made a statement because he knew. And earlier on, you might say, well, it's a coincidence. Oh, that just happened. Oh, yeah, maybe, I was lucky. But after over and over again, I was not in any pain through the burns. I wasn't in any pain after the transplant. Well, who could even wish for that? You hope that is minimal. See? But I couldn't orchestrate that. I don't think it was just, oh, Robert, your faith is so good. I think God has, just like you as a father, you're going to make sure every aspect that you can put your hands on will comfort your loved one. And that's what he's done for me. So my
Okay.
faith has increased. Yeah. Now
All
I
right.
can
Let's.
forgive that person that hit me. People, oh, how could you forgive somebody that, well, it was only an accident. No matter, no matter who it was or how it happened, it was an accident. How many of us have lied, cheated, deceived, misused, misled individuals, or accident, bumped into or had an accident, whether it was with a person, a car, or even your wishes or a driveway, anything. Accident. Doesn't matter how it, a person could be depressed, a person could be nervous, who knows? It doesn't matter. It was an accident. So it's not anything, in my opinion, to forgive. And if God judged me on on what I have done to cause accidents or cause someone to stumble, you and I wouldn't be talking today.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about when they started talking to you about a possible phased a transplant and when you were approved for such a transplant. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that process. Uh, Here again, I've seen many plastic surgeons and dermatologists before that, and one plastic surgeon, his name was Walter Chain, Dr. Walter Chain. He had a friend that had studied under Dr. Palmer Hawk. As a result of that, when he saw my condition, he realized that having lips by a plastic surgeon would only give me a flap, and that I would not have any control because there wouldn't be any nerve endings that could maneuver or muscles that could maneuver my lips, closing, and so on. So he contacted his friend. His friend contacted about Dr. Pomahawk. He called me and asked me to come to Boston for an evaluation. I came for 3 days, and and then I came for 5 days, another occasion. They told me at that time that they were only taking people that were 50 years and under. But they invited me. I didn't ask them, and they felt that I could. I never drank and smoked and all that stuff, so I'm sure they had something to do with it. But they felt that at my age, at that time I was probably 64, 65, I guess, yeah, somewhere around there, and they felt that I could withstand the surgery.
Okay. Tell us how a face transplant is different from a solid organ transplant. For example, I had a kidney transplant,
Uh-huh.
but I don't think it was anything like the way you have described, or at least I've heard you describe a face transplant. Can you tell us what the differences are?
Yes, of course, in my own layman's terms, but uh, a kidney transplant, they could add another kidney to you, as you know, or take one out. Uh, Heart, the same, uh, liver, lung, and so on. However, with a face, every part is an organ. It's tissue. And it has to be, well, what they've done is the, the family that consented to allow their loved one to share their face with me, their hospital has to prepare that person's face. So a team is there to prepare it. And then I'm over at Brigham Women's in Boston, and a team is there to prepare my face. They have to basically strip my face off, strip the donor's face off. And then that team, or a part of that team, flies over to the donor's location to procure that donor. They fly back. They have to do all this within 3 hours. They fly back and start on me. What this means basically is every part of my face has to be sewn on. It ha- the nerve endings, the blood vessels, the muscles, the tendons, every bit of it has to be sewn on and, to complete the job. So my eyelids, I can feel difference in my eyelids. Even my, uh, if you line my face up, if I try to eat, I have to make adjustments because the alignment is different. Yeah. So there's a lot of difference in face transplant versus an organ replacement.
Okay. I want to make sure people understand the person that donated to you, and I understand it was anonymous. The person that donated to you, he was a decedent donor. Is that correct?
Yes, they generally the person is brain dead, but there's many other ways, as you know, I'm sure, that they can acquire it, and the major, I mean, uh, that person could be just absolutely dead and not brain dead. Uh, a lot of people have committed suicide, and so as a result of that, they have to, you know, deal with that person's body right away. And even some of the face transplant recipients attempted suicide, but they
Hmm.
failed. So now their face is all whatever, and that's how some of the face transplant recipients uh, qualified to receive a face transplant. Oh, another correction. I think you made that one. There's 15 in the United States. You did make that correction, and 10 of them were actually done at Brigham Women's Hospital, uh, and the other five, obviously, Mayo Clinic done one or two, uh, uh, NYU done one or two, Cleveland, you know, there's a couple other places. And about 9 different countries had done face transplants, from Spain to France, uh, uh, I think one in London, one has been done in Japan, one in Mexico, Canada. Uh, I don't remember if Australia is in that, but I've gotten phone calls from so many different countries regarding face transplant. So many.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your experience with maintenance or additional work that has been done after your face transplant.
The My maintenance is uh, to the average person is overwhelming. I have to record temperature, weight, blood pressure, sugar levels, heart rate, all that every single day, and I have to submit that. When I say I have to, they don't they don't ball me out or anything, but they would like for me to submit that weekly because we talk, the doctors and I and the pharmacist, every single week at least once a week, every week. Uh, we have a discussion, maybe a 20-minute discussion over how my progress is coming along. So, and that's, almost 4 years later, still, that's exactly how it's done. Fortunately, Kaiser Hospital, although they're not a part of Brigham Women's uh, or Yale or any of those others, they have worked together before I got my transplant. It took a year or so just for uh, the hospitals to synchronize their computers so that I would be able to be monitored on real time and lab work, biopsies, all that to be done locally because of the distance. Who could have set that up for one black man, insurance wise? Who's going to pay for insurance for one guy that they never had a face transplant that they had the service before? The medication is so high. One medication, in 2016, I had to be tested for this medication to make sure my body could handle it. That was almost 2.5 years before my transplant. That that medication was $11,300 for a 60-day supply. And last in late April, I received a invoice for $550 something dollars. Did I say 500? $5,050 something for this same medication, but that was a 30-day supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about what your medications cost on an annual basis? How much every year are you spending on medicines, immunosuppressants, and other medications that you need?
Well, I'm going to round it off. I tell people it's $4,600 a month for my medical regimen. Uh, Whatever that is times. So I'll say 5,000 times 12 is $60,000. Some of it is uh, uh, written off. That's another. Kaiser, with all of what we've been going through, Kaiser agreed to what Medicare would take care of some of it, and what they wouldn't take care of, Kaiser agreed to write the rest of it off for one black man. I'm still the only one that has a face transplant that they service, but they gave me a copay, so my copay uh, anyway it's quite high. Yeah.
Okay. Talk to us about the cost of the actual surgery, the actual face transplant surgery. Did they discuss costs with you before the surgery, and how much money are we talking about?
Well, no, I didn't have to pay for the surgery. That was under a grant by the military because they are the ones that had to test for the first 10 patients to if they could qualify for that. So I was one of those 10 patients. So I didn't have to pay at all the for the surgery itself. Um, the first once I got discharged, just like after you receive your kidney or whatever else a person receives in terms of transplant, there's a period that you have to stay. You have to have a caregiver, or in my case, I had to stay in Boston for the first 90 days or so. Well, I got a rent here, where I stay, and now I got to pay 3 months out there. Uh, out there was $7,000 a month. One bedroom, one bedroom. It was a big room because I had to have a caregiver. So that's just to give you just a taste of. Uh, and then my caregiver, uh, we went through a list of individuals that were willing to be my caregiver. However, when I did get the call, you don't know when they're going to call you. I got the call 9:30 at night on a Thursday night, and Dr. Palmerhoff wanted me to come in immediately, at worst case, within 24 hours. So I got on a plane the next morning. Um, and we started calling, loved ones, let them know what was going on. I didn't do that before the transplant. I could only call a couple of people because I had to get some rest and make airline, and all that. So when I get to the hospital, and camera crews and all that, they wanted to, follow me everywhere. And so they come, we have the surgery, of course, more camera crews, and then you got people from all over. They came. Once I stayed in the hospital about 2 weeks, and they had arranged for this apartment, $7,000 apartment, and we had to get caregivers, and everyone that we tried to that we knew had consented couldn't come. They were sick, or they had a special doctor appointment, couldn't reach whatever it was. So we ended up having to extend our efforts to other friends that we had not discussed this with, and they came right through. Of course, I had to pay for their airlines out of Los Angeles or out of Altadena or out of Fullerton, that's going to County area, out of all the Inglewood, all these different, and they, one by one, every week, they come out and each one of them stayed 7 days. So I had to pay for the airlines. I gave them 500 each person. They were friends, but you don't want them to. Some took emergency leave from their job. So uh, those kind of expenses are not necessarily what everybody would go through, but that's what I had to go through, in preparation. And then once, and then of course you got to buy food. You have to do, everything is new. Or they got to buy every food item they want, and you're on a special diet. Even today, I'm on a very special diet, and you can't eat the same food leftovers. So that means you got to keep it fresh and or uh, buy something new or cook something new each day. And, so this is we're talking face transplant. It may not be the same for kidney. They could be back on the feet, back to work in 3 months. But in this case, we're learning so much that it just requires a great deal of time in the hospital. I know I never had a lot of hospital visits, uh, and yet after the transplant, I've been in there almost 25 different times.
Oh, wow.
Not necessarily for surgeries, but infections. You know. Now with my
Okay.
skin, yeah, and there's a big difference. There's a lot of disparity, Jim. A lot of disparity, unfortunately. but we're here to advocate for it. That's why you have your show, and that's why I'm on it to encourage people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, I know you had a GoFundMe account, and you raised around $75,000. Is
yeah.
that correct?
It was around. Yes, I think it shows something like 85,000, but I put 14,000 myself. I had to do. I just did a little like I put 1,000 in, 500, and I would use fictitious names just so that it would look like, it was building up. And then a television station came to visit me, and he did such a nice job uh, with sharing uh, my story that at least $30,000 came out of that right away, and boy was it needed because it went so fast right after the transplant. And I
Mhm.
got two rentals that you're paying for in Boston and here. But uh, I'm sure you might have gone through some of this, but I know what burn survivors or people that have lost their home through tragic uh, incidences, whether it's fire, flood, so on, everything is lost. Well, in my fire, of course, I was burned all up, but I was in the hospital for a year and a half. Well, what who's going to keep your mortgage going for that long? Who's going to keep your business going for that long? Who is going, the IRS, I had levies. Once like a year and a half, 2 years, by the time I could read some of the mail and, see where I had charge offs, banks closed on me, credit shot. Just, and not only that, my car that was burned up in the fire completely, they had towed it off the freeway and put it into a storage, garage, and they sent me a bill for $3,200.
Wow.
So you lost everything, whether you have a rent or mortgage, everything is gone. Nobody knows where you are, so it's not their fault. You get no responses from them. In addition to that, your customers, they haven't, if they placed in the order, they don't hear from you. They don't know whether you got the order or not. Why haven't you returned the call? But so there's a lot individuals have gone through losing from fires and and floods and burns. I understand what they're going through. I, I can relate, and I can appreciate how God has sustained me in spite of it all, to tell this wonderful story because it is. It's not really about, oh yeah, you went through this with the transplant. It's about trusting our Heavenly Father. You got one. It's worth trusting.
Okay. I understand that expenses are ongoing, and you have a website
Yes.
for more information about yourself, and other people can help you with ongoing expenses at robertchelsea.com. Is that correct?
.org
Dot
organization.
.org.
Yeah.
Boy,
It,
Jim,
it's
do
a
your homework,
foundation.
huh?
It's a
Dot
foundation.
.org.
Robert Chelsea Foundation. So it's robertchelsea.org. Yeah.
Okay.
They can Google my name, Robert Chelsea, and all kind of information will come up because you're like a public figure because of what transpired. So they can just
Okay.
Google my name and find me if they want to. I would like one thing I do, Jim, that I'm not sure if I discussed it with you, but I showed you my legs. Well,
Sure.
I have what I call a show and tell. You probably remember in our elementary school days where uh, one day a week you can show and tell certain things. Uh, but anyway, we had it at my school, and I like to show the kids what it looks like to be a burn survivor because those kids have other kids that can't walk the same way that they walk or talk. Uh, or seen. You know, they don't look the same, and kids tease them. But they have a better understanding that that child could have been in a fire, a barbecue fire. They could have had their hair burned off when they get hair. They could, you know, house fire, electrocutions. So much can happen to deform or birth defects. And I try to let the kids in middle school and high schools know that. So by doing that, I just show them that what's underneath a child's clothing might be anything. That's not their fault. So that they can have, hopefully, they'll have a little more empathy toward their peers if they realize that, you know, these things happen to anyone, you know, without them doing anything. Accidents do happen.
Okay. You had an offer, a first offer for a facial transplant
Yeah,
in, my notes tell me, May of 2018. And you turned that offer down. Can you tell us what happened there?
yes. Uh, after waiting, you know, a couple of years, I did get a call, but uh, during this process, Brigham, they were so helpful. They put together a, a string of different shades, 18 different shades of African American complexions. The lightest being one, and of course the darkest being 18. Well, my complexion at the time, I felt, was between 16 and 8. Uh, this person that was going to be the donor in May, a year or so before my transplant, they were almost as light as you. So it wouldn't have been a good contrast for me to have facial tissue and all that with a person that light complected. So that's why I turned it down. I know people say, well, wait a minute, you know, you get a chance to have no have lips and you can do, but I was pretty much comfortable, even though I, you know, there's things I may not had or wasn't comfortable with. It was still I was still used to doing what I do to get along. So I was willing to wait until they found something that was a little bit more.
More like your original color,
Yes,
your original skin tone.
yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Um, I've read some of the things you said before, and you stated that less than 7% of the organs procured in New England were from Black people, and I know that this is a big theme that runs through everything I read about you that's written. And just so folks know, if you go to my Facebook page, the original announcement of the broadcast, and you go into the comments, everything I could find about Robert is in there. His website, other videos, articles written about him, including from Time Magazine. So if you want to drill down a little bit more on Robert, um, you can certainly do that by just going to my original announcement of the broadcast.
Uh-huh.
So, at any rate, the theme that I have read that kind of runs through everything that's been written about you is that you're trying to deal with the racial inequities in our transplant system, that you're trying to encourage more Afro-American people to donate, not only for facial transplants, but for solid organ transplants as well. Can you talk to us about that? Your
Yes,
experiences with that?
it, it's the number of people that are in Boston are closer to 2%. Uh, and uh, my advocacy is really to increase awareness for everyone, not just African Americans. I would not have the face if it weren't for African Americans. But you don't need a face for a kidney, a liver, a lung, and so on. So the idea is not really to advocate so much for face transplant as it is for becoming a donor. They don't have to pay for burial or for cremation. It benefits, there's at least 75 different parts of that body that could be used to help someone else. So my advocacy effort really uh, is to increase awareness and thereby increase awareness for African Americans, uh, indigenous, uh, Latinos. Because we're all needed. Now, in my community, it's like about 35% of blacks are in need, that's on the list, that's in need of a kidney. And we're only about 13% of the whole country. And yet 35% are on those dialysis machines. And so that has to be, we have to increase that. And obviously, if a family member can give any of their organs to another family member, that even increases the opportunity for or less rejection. So it, we need to, as every ethnic group, we need to be more conscious, aware of, of the benefits behind our fellow diaspora or disabled diaspora. What country, what city uh, doesn't have disabled individuals? So how can I
That's true.
isolate one person? That doesn't, that would, we're gonna, I dare not be partial. And yet, because I represent a community, uh, hopefully that can be an influence to that community. But my words, I hope, and my efforts, I hope, will transcend much broader and more rapidly than trying to focus on any one particular group.
Okay. I understand that you received a call for your facial transplant surgery in July of 2019, and that the transplant surgery actually took place July 7th, 2019, at Brigham and Women's Hospital with Dr. I want to get it right this time, Pomahak, and a team of 45 surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, residents, research fellows. Um, Tell us about this. What was it like? I mean, you waited a long time.
Well, yeah, to others, I waited a long time, but for me, you go about your daily business. As I said, I was satisfied. You know, how could I complain? How could I want more when, you morning by morning, new mercies unfold. So when it came up, I was surprised. I was happy, but the waiting wasn't really an issue for me.
Okay. How was the actual surgery day itself and the few days afterwards? What was that like for you?
Well, of course, uh, when I got to Boston, we, we we were filming a documentary. There's different groups were filming different documentaries, and so they took all the pictures and picked me up from the airport, brought me to the hotel. I mean to the hospital. When I checked in, that was smooth. My godson Everett Brown, we call him Ricky. Uh, he met me there. He lives in New York area, so he met me there. Uh, and I went to the operating. They escorted me to the operating room. Some of the surgeons came in, introduced themselves, and there was general medicine, there's general surgery, there's all kind of different individuals, but they were all very nice. They were all cordial, and obviously they're all about business. This is their first encounter as well with a black uh, uh, transplant patient. So I realized that, and which is no problem. I hope I can be of some degree of influence in a pleasant way for any possible intimidation or uh, discomfort. I hope that I kept them, at ease and comfortable with receiving me. And so I went into the operating room. They do what they do in terms of talk to you and put the mask on. They, they estimated how much time it would be, which didn't happen quite that way because when I arrived, I think it was on the 27th, I arrived, but around 5 o'clock at night, and they had to still go procure the uh, uh, person. Uh, and so they left to procure the person after 12 o'clock at night. So when they did come back, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning the next day, and then they started putting me to sleep. When I woke up, I was in intensive care. The nurses they were super, super, super nice, and I stayed in there maybe 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and they took me up to a regular room. Not regular, because they don't want anybody to know that you have had a face transplant. That would be a news. Uh, the news get a hold of that and make a big deal. So I was always isolated, uh, and that's why I had that $7,000 apartment. They kept me in private quarters and all that. So uh, everything turned out real fine. The nurses, like a week or so, they came up to my room and wanted to take pictures. So we took the ICU nurses. So they got one on this side, one, and we took pictures together. I had the pictures. Uh, so we're friends now. Some of the nurses, they, uh, they update me on their kids. The kids, some of them have graduated. Some of, because we've had pretty good rapport. I've been in and out of there for several years now, and I've gotten acquainted with, quite a few of the people there. So that
Okay.
transition was pretty smooth and pleasant. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Let's talk about your care and your costs since the time of your surgery to date. I understand that, we've talked about travel costs. We've talked about paid caregiver costs. It's my understanding insurance companies do not always accept facial transplant patients or cover their costs because they consider the procedure to be experimental. Am I
Yes,
right about that?
yes. Yeah, for that matter, not only do the insurance companies, but Medicare wasn't ready to take care of me either. Fortunately, Obamacare was, and they took care of everything from UCI burns, my whole 18 months, you know, Obamacare took care of all of that. It wasn't until I was discharged and stayed with my sister that I had to, of course, take care of. I'm staying with my sister. I want to make sure she is adequately taken care of because people, nurses and everybody's coming in and out of out of the house to service me. The physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, uh, the CNA who just sent me a week ago sent me pictures of her kids. She's got 4 kids. Her and her husband have 4 kids, and two of them one from the junior high, and the other is high school graduations. So we've stayed in touch. But all of them were, though I had to pay for a great deal. I started out paying around, it was, it was about $2,800 as soon as I came out of the hospital, and then when I didn't have Kaiser at that time. I was paying as I go, different dermatologists, different plastic surgeons, different wound care, different, but uh, but fortunately I was able to join Kaiser where I had a flat rate, and that was like 500 and something dollars because I was still self-employed. Yeah, but expenses are great. I never knew the the I had no clue of you hear people saying they lose their house, they gotta sell this, they gotta get rid of that, draw down on their pension and so on. Well, that's true. The the industry, especially for someone that is considered uh, a non-threatening surgery, and so the insurance companies they they weren't very friendly. However, look at what our Heavenly Father, some kind of way, He made a way. But the expenses are still great. They, you but how can I complain? It's helpful, especially when you want to go and share with others. I try to make sure that anytime I am invited to be a speaker, I like to make sure that I have that uh, sponsor put me in touch with at least one or two schools in the area. So if I go to Minnesota, I would like to at least see one of those local schools so that I can at least do a show and tell for them. And I do that
Okay.
around Los Angeles, anywhere that opens up to me. I've gone to K through 12. I've gone to special ed class, special ed schools. I've gone to a gymnasium that special. Well, anyway, many. Oh, I've even I met with, I think it was about 18 uh, ex felons. They had, and all of those were lifers. They had been in at least 20 years or more. And when they got released, anyway, we got together. I didn't do it. A friend of mine that also is a part of our board, she has a heart like that, and she coordinated that, and I came and got a chance to speak to them because it is also about overcoming adversities. No matter what your adversity might be, you are now in the public's eye one way or the other. And as a result of that, psychologically, there are adjustments that I made, and I know that they had to make. So anyway, that went very well as well.
Okay. I understand that you've been hospitalized recently. Can you tell us what was going on with that hospitalization?
Huh? Well, I guess what I had was walking pneumonia. I'll put it that way because I knew, like in uh, late November, December, I wasn't as energetic, uh, and I couldn't shake it. January, the same happened, and it kept on happening, and so much was going on with some other loved ones. I just thought I was exhausted trying to help, friends dying with two friends died with brain cancer just
Hmm.
in late, no, early February. and just so I I was so ill this one particular. I think that was on the night. I took myself on the night. They kept me all day, sent me home that night. The next day, I was too ill to go, and uh, a loved one came to my house. They had to break in, and they took me. We should have called 911, but it cost $500 something every time the emergency units come out. So I can't afford those kind of payments. Even if you can afford it, the paperwork you go through to 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 pay it, you gotta, it becomes bill after bill. So anyway, I got there and apparently fainted. That's in February 2010. I mean, February the 10th, this year, and my oxygen level was down to 70%, and the warning signs are at like 91, 92%. Red light comes on, and I was already at 70. So they put me on a ventilator. They had me on in a coma. They put me in a coma. I was there for 14 days, and so that whole month of February and March of this year, I was dealing with pneumonia coming out of that. Of course, you know, so the expenses that go along with being away again, uh, they don't change. Fortunately, I had a good record with the rental, and but that's what happens. Uh,
Okay.
I came out of it April the 1st. I was discharged. I had to be in a wheelchair to get it, but a week or so later, now I don't have to use this walker, and, and since then I've been walking up 3 flights of steps. Just yesterday with the physical therapist, we went around. But I was going to go to Wayne State University in March. It was already confirmed, but we had to cancel that. So, but I try to do as many speaking engagements as I'm invited. I want to make sure that we get out. Who knows how long you have to to work? After Noah had completed the ark, and 40 days after that, you don't know any more about Noah. He did his job, and you never know when your job is over. So, as the saying goes, we work while it's day, for the nightfall, no man can work.
Okay. Robert, from the time of your face transplant until to date, what do you estimate your costs to have been that you're trying to pay for?
Oh, well, the the first, I, if I had known, I could try to get the books, but we spent about $60,000 the first year.
Okay.
No, no, it really wasn't the first year. From July, the end of July is when I had the face transplant, until December 2019, about 60,000. That's when COVID set in the next month, January 2020. On January 2020, I got an infection, and they kept me in the hospital for 17 days. I was there from the 1st to the 17th January 2000. Septic infection. In February, I was there twice. One for 3 days and one for five. One for 3 days and one for 4 days. In March, I was there for 5 days. In April, I was there for 3 days. And then spread out the rest of the time. I was there about eight separate occasions in 2020. You know, during the COVID season, the height of the COVID season, but I didn't catch COVID then. I did catch COVID 2021 twice. Yeah, of course, you
Ooh,
know. But you know, Jim, when you tell these stories, oh my God, oh you went through, but it's day by day. It's not like you know all of this hits one day. It's even though it seems like a lot, and it was if you just read about it. But there's recovery, and then you go in. I don't, I don't like going in the hospital, but I don't
nobody
mind. It
does.
just happens to be my journey. Just you know, it wasn't for the first 60 years of my life, but it certainly has made up for it these last 10 years.
Yeah, I you know, I I'm wondering, are we talking about several $100,000 that you accrued in costs?
Well, yeah, but I can't say that I paid all that out. It came from sources that, you know, I might all of a sudden get a commission of who knows. You know, it just, it has come on time.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Let me
we've already
ask
completed,
this.
yeah.
If somebody wanted to contribute to help you pay for some of these costs,
Yes.
besides your website, is there any other place that they could contact and, try to give Robert a hand?
Oh, yes, I sincerely appreciate it. They can call me direct. Uh, 951 951 3499. And the foundation, I don't know if we're going to spend the time with the address and all that, but Robert
Yeah, go
Chuck,
ahead.
they could just look that up and send uh, anything they'd like, or Zelle or Cash App or anything like that would be greatly appreciated. So you can contact me any way you like. Uh, and I appreciate you emphasizing this. It is it is extremely important. Uh, but you know, I'm
Can-
grateful that he seems to always make a way. You know I had terrible credit before my accident, and I ended up having great credit, way upwards 789, something like that. Uh, Even after the transplant, because some kind of way organizations would they came to my bedside bringing $800, $1,000, $5,000. These organizations just did that, you know. Uh, uh, like the little the ballroom dance group, they came to my bedside with Denny's, the owner. There's a he's an owner of Denny's, and he also owned two Burger King. It's just you know. Fortunately, we've been able to sustain. There is no money in the savings or anything like that, but but you know that's okay.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the groups that you work with for your advocacy advocacy work. Obviously, the Robert Chelsea Foundation. Do I have that name right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
I read something about Donor Dreams and Everett Brown. Is
yes.
that another group that you work with?
Edward Brown is my godson, and he's out of New York. We came up with the term donor's dream because of the great need, and once I read the great need for donors, it's not about the face transplant. It really isn't about, they say, oh, you're the keynote speaker, we want, nobody's seen a face transplant. It's about helping your your peers. And so it's a donor's dream, as we see it. And so that's
Okay.
one aspect of Robert Chelsea Foundation. Another
Okay.
aspect is a group out of Pennsylvania. It's called Reconstructive, uh, uh, Reconstructive Transplant. Uh, oh, I can't. Anyway, what we do is concentrate on those that have need to replace their limbs. There are many people that they had another foot, they could walk. If they had another arm, if they had, uh, and so on. So as a result of that, that group is almost isolated. And so we have incorporated or worked with that group, and I'm on the board with that group, so that we can make sure that we concentrate on as many people on in the diaspora as possible. So that's that group. I work with advisory group with Kaiser. I was so grateful that they invited me to be on the um, transplant patient advisory uh, group. So I work with Kaiser, and that's a nationwide group, but Southern California is where they are. Speaking of Southern California, I am a part of another transplant games. It's Southern California. This is my jacket. That's what this logo is for the transplant
Gift
game.
alive.
Uh,
Gift alive.
the what?
Gift of life.
Oh yes, gift of life. And so and just last December we had the transplant games. It was a 5-day event, I think, and so we went and supported it. So and as you mentioned, someone that made a comment there. I've been to Florida to work with that group EMAT. Uh, 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 so I also been to Florida State University and talk with some of their medical students. I also spoke with Mayo Clinic out there. I had a roundtable discussion with Yale University on patient care and needs of transplant patients. I was also a part of AMAT. Uh, AMAT, that's multicultural. Let's see, oh, I can't come up with the. It's Oh, I can't remember the acronym. But yeah, as many groups as we can work with, the better. This is, we got to have somewhere where we can channel and service our diaspora. So
Okay.
that's
Did you?
our,
I'm sorry. Did you
uh,
work with a group called About Face?
yes. Uh, I think yesterday, yeah, uh, about they're out of New England, out of the UK, and I'll be going out there in May next year to see them. Just she's uh, Faye Brown Albertini is a wonderful person to work with. Man, I'll try to introduce you to some of these people out there, but yeah, working with them, she uh, she was with York University and now she's with King's University. So we want to do what we can. It's not for a particular country. It has to be for whatever information we gather, whatever information that we establish as viable. It must be for everybody.
Okay. Talk to us about any future advocacy activities that you have or any future health activities that you're anticipating that's going to go on.
Well, believe it or not, I'm sure you may be familiar with Connorsville, Indiana. I was
Yeah.
there 2 years ago, um, and I'll be going into some other areas in North Carolina in October. Um, and in South Carolina, we're preparing. We were going to, but because I got sick, I couldn't go there. And as I mentioned, Wayne State, I couldn't do that in March. But there was, I had, uh, can't remember, don't have my calendar, but oh, October the 4th through the 7th, I'll be in Maryland. That's for burn, because I'm burn. There's a World Burn Conference, and
Okay.
so I'll be there. Another awesome group of people. They are around, And this community of burn survivors and transplant, you know, they're probably some of the nicest people because they're not as inhibited. Look at yourself. Here you are advocating for, and publicly, letting them know that you had a kidney transplant. In that, Shirley Brill, she had a double lung transplant and excited to share not only her story, but advocate for it. So, and there's others, that, so this is a community. I'm so glad God saw fit to join me with you and others that are around. And that's because of all of this. How could I
Okay.
complain?
All right. Um, Robert, I like to do this when we're in the home stretch with my guests.
Uh-huh.
Before we close our conversation today, is there anything that you would like to discuss with our audience? Did I forget anything? Is there something that you think is important that you want people to know?
Uh, the most important is uh, I have learned, and I hope others learn to trust our Heavenly Father. That's one thing you don't have to go any special place to do. Learn to trust Him, then He'll send you to special places. That's the most important. Another, for our own self, is kindness. Kindness pays dividends that no man can measure. And we cannot assume that what we have is kind enough. It isn't. As a matter of fact, I think I've read somewhere where a man said, circumcise the foreskin of your heart. That applies to all of us. And you will find out uh, that there is so much more. Number one, there's so much that we haven't done, and so much more that we can do. But you got to circumcise. You got to search not your heart on your own, because you're not going to discover anything. You'll be halfway satisfied with what you got. But you got to strip away that and learn a godly way of living versus your own. Otherwise, you'll continue to be discriminate, prejudiced, biased, etc. So, you know, that's another reason I'm so glad because of this experience. What do I have to hide? You know,
Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
it pleased me. It pleased me, and I trust and hope that our conversation today will help to encourage and open up, or if you will, please someone else and encourage them to help someone else if they can.
Okay. Robert, I can't tell you how much I learned tonight during the course of this broadcast. What a terrific job that you did. And, thank you for hanging in with us there almost 2 hours, my friend, that we have been talking.
Really?
And you just did a terrific job. Thank you so much for coming on and raising awareness and educating us about a new topic here on Kidney Solutions 2.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Thank you. Could I ask you one question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
What is there anything else that you would have me to do that I have not expressed? Is there anything that you'd like to suggest for me? Presentations and interviews and expressions, some of them have to be curtailed, some of them need to be expanded, and so it would be helpful whether it's on the video or not. It'd be helpful to get your input.
Yeah. I would be more than happy to work with you on that. I could contact some groups uh, on your behalf and see if I could get them to let you come and speak. I have a friend that Kent Bressler, who was on tonight asking questions. He runs a group called Kidney Solutions, but he seems to have an interest in you. He does podcasts like I do. I make if you give me your permission, I'm happy to contact him and see if I can get you on. And I promise if anything comes up in the future that you and I think would be of interest, I will definitely let you know.
That would be wonderful. I sincerely appreciate your efforts. Thank you for caring so much. That's what.
Such a great story, Robert. I mean, never had a story like this on the broadcast before. You really did a terrific job. I want you to know how much I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Okay. I'm going to let you go now. I have a few things to do with the audience to close things up, but
Okay.
I want to make sure you're okay. And I know I've kept you about an hour longer than I said I would. So, thank you so much, my friend. What a terrific job you did tonight.
Thank you very much, Jim. So now I can call you Uncle Jim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thank you again. And just want to thank our audience and say good night and keep the faith. So a few overlays when we say goodbye, Robert.
Okay. Should I turn off now?
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, okay. All right. It's getting great. Thank you.
You're welcome.